Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts, that would really, really help us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show, and I'd like to thank anyone that's already done that for us. It really does make a huge difference, and thank you. Okay, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
It's going okay, Mark. I had a really great week and then I got ill, so I've spent the last 48 hours.
It is the season.
Yeah,
it's the season
exactly
to be ill.
Yeah, the cold has come and the lurgies come with it. So yeah, if you get sort of eruptions of lung gunk from me, I apologise in advance.
Good Lord, Lewis. Good Lord.
How you doing?
I'm alright, man. Jesus. What have you been playing?
Just lots more Death Stranding. I think I'm about halfway through the game now, which is fantastic. And what a set piece designer Kojima is, on top of all the other things that go on in that game. The amount of just sections where something crazy happens and you're suddenly thrust into essentially like a mini boss experience, or like an infiltrate an area. It's got like those kind of Metal Gear shadows over it as well, like where you have to infiltrate an area and sneak past a lot of BTs. And when you're doing moments like that, you just remember, like, beyond all the madness, beyond all the crazy writing that's in this game and a lot of the stuff that people haven't found fun, there are just moments that are unbeatable, that are just pure Kojima, you know? What about you, Mark? What have you been playing?
Well, still been playing Pokemon. It continues to be exactly like Pokemon. No, it's great. It's really good fun. Still quite easy. That's my main complaint about it, really.
Has it not got any harder at all?
Not really, to be completely honest. I mean, it's got maybe fractionally harder, but not that much harder, to be completely honest. I'm maybe about a third of the way through it. I've not been playing it that much, because what I have been playing, Lewis, is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Very nice. Yes, you said last week that you were going to do this now instead of Death Stranding, which seems like a potential mistake to me, but tell us about it.
Well, what I've written down here is that it's a unique combination of unoriginal ideas, which is completely true. I mean, it's got traversal and climbing in the vein of Uncharted and Prince of Persia. It's got Metroid Prime features to it as well. Its map is just a complete rip-off of Metroid Prime map. And its combat is, again, just ripped from Dark Souls. What I think that all this basically adds up to is that was a real easy sell to the shareholders at Disney. Mm-hmm. We're going to do all these things like all these other games that have been proven to be great, and we're not going to do anything particularly original with the gameplay mechanics. We're not going to monetize it in any way other than the traditional method. We're going to put it out. It's going to review well. It's not going to be a disaster before your next major film comes out.
Yeah, right.
Is that okay, Disney? And then Disney says, yes, that's fine. Away you go.
Nice. So it's delivering on those things for you so far. I guess you can't have played too much yet, right? But
well, I've played. I mean, I did give it a fair old go last night. I'm not gonna lie. So I maybe played about 7-ish hours. Cool. So just breaking down those mechanics. So just like thinking about those mechanics, like the Metroid aspects of the game so far to me have been a bit annoying, to be honest. They've not been implemented well. So we just finished playing Super Metroid from way back, and I couldn't say enough good things about the level design there, because although you were tracking back, you were going to different areas and doing different things. But whereas this, you don't have to track back to get onto your to go to your main next story objective, because quite often that next story objective seems to be just a different planet. And again, maybe I'm just too early on in the game, but in actual fact, it seems to be that a lot of what you're going back for is, oh, now you can open this door, and in that door is a chest, and that chest is a new hilt for your lightsaber. And then I'm quickly like, oh, I don't care about that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes that exploration is a bit disappointing, because it's something that it seems that you have to go back and do, and the reward for going to do it, apart from a wee bit of additional XP, is essentially cosmetic stuff that I'm not overly interested in. Occasionally you will get something good, like an upgrade or whatever. I'm trying not to say too much to avoid spoilers to you and everyone else listening, obviously. But most of the tracking back, it's not really what I would describe as like Metroid Prime. This feels like you're tracking back deliberately to go and get, as I said, like a new poncho or something. Do you know what I mean? So that bit, I'm kind of like, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. Like I said that, it's probably sounding very negatively, but it's fine. One of the things about the map is that, particularly on the second world, it is labyrinthian. It is very difficult to follow, or at least I find it very difficult to follow, which isn't great as well. So the map's all blue, things that you can't get through are red because you don't have the powers, or you're not physically capable of getting through this area for whatever reason, which is good, that is a good thing that the map does. But when you can get through them, they then turn green. And quite often, if you're zoomed out on the map, the doors that you have to get through are very, very small specks of green on a blue background that's kind of glowing.
Yeah.
And they're not
super clear.
They're not super clear sometimes. Yeah. However, it's fine. Again, that was a lot of negativity there, but it's basically fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. I never really had any issues with the traversal, with the Uncharted / Prince of Persia mechanics. I know a lot of people were finding that difficult, and perhaps the game wasn't telegraphing to them when to jump to grab ropes and whatever, say. And you do occasionally miss time a jump and you just fall to your death, or you don't quite walk on the balance beam at quite the right area and you fall to your death, which of course can be annoying, but in situations like that when you're falling, the respawn time is like instant. One thing I will say, and we'll get onto technical issues in a second, is that when you die from like a boss fight or something like that, the reload times can be long.
Yeah,
I'm operating
up to a minute or something at certain points. Like,
I'm not sure it's been that much, but I'm operating on an OG PS4 here again, and in fact, I'll just get into the technical issues just now. That is annoying, particularly early on when you're still trying to come to terms with the mechanics, with the combat, with your force powers. You do die, like, sometimes relatively frequently, or sometimes you just get stuck a bit and you die a couple of times in a row, and that's very frustrating when that happens, because there's a long wait. If it's, say, a boss or a mini boss, you're just dead instantly again, because it can happen like that.
Of course,
like, if you're not on it and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing when the enemy's attacking, due to the Dark Souls style of combat, you can just be dead, and that's just that, and you can be dead very, very quickly. And if you can't heal yourself properly within the fight, it can be over quite genuinely in seconds.
Yeah, and then you have to wait ages again.
Then you have to go back all the way, because again, it's like the Dark Souls respawn points as well.
Yeah.
So you have to work your way back to the boss as well. It can be a bit annoying. Other technical issues that I've come across is when I am going through, like, from one big section of a map to another big section of a map, there can be like hard stop loading points within the game. So the game will literally stop, and then a wee loading circle will come up in the bottom right corner. This is something that reminds me of PS2 games when they're about to crash, and eventually it will come back on, and it'll only be like a few seconds, but you're like, nothing like that to take you out of the immersion of the game. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it isn't something that we see very often anymore. You're right.
No, so, definitely not. And I did soft lock the game at one point as well, because at one point when you're supposed to be getting one of your powers, right, basically it seems as though you're supposed to spawn in a particular position, and when I first spawned into this room, I could just like wander around the room freely, and that wasn't really what was supposed to be happening. I was just supposed to be fixed on doing a thing, and it just meant that I could just roam around this room, but none of the animations would work. I couldn't do the thing that I was supposed to do to progress.
Right, okay.
And therefore I was just stuck there. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. It was nothing that I was doing as well. Like, I couldn't control the camera correctly as well, because obviously this wasn't a moment that you were supposed to be maneuvering the camera. You were just supposed to be like fixed on this thing and doing this one thing. It just wouldn't do it, and I had to quit out the game and go back in. And then when I'd done it again, it loaded me in the correct position, and it was totally fine.
That's very weird.
I know there was a big patch before I started playing it as well, I noticed, but back to the kind of traversal stuff, most of that was fine. The sliding thing that a lot of people have mentioned seems a bit contrived, and it just seemed like, we want to use this sliding mechanic where he's like surfing down bits of ice or muddy hills or whatever. It seems to be that there was just a decision made where we're going to use this mechanic, and it's shit. I don't know why. Yeah, it's not very good. I don't understand why they've forced it in there so much. That was part of the reason why people, I think, were struggling to make jumps and stuff like that, because I think they were just struggling for like timing and positioning off these slides. Basically, they're just dumb. There's no need for them. I really don't understand why they're in. The story is pretty damn good, actually. I'm enjoying the story. It's good. Good story. Cal might be the most uninteresting part of the story, which isn't good. I would say that most of the other characters in and around Cal are significantly more interesting, significantly more likeable. Not that he's unlikable, but he's just nothing. He's like beige wallpaper. He's just kind of there. Do you know what I mean? BD1, the wee droid, is fucking awesome. That's going to be banded around the internet. I can totally back that up, 100%. Very cool droid. But as well as that, like, it's a real shame, because there's a lot kind of happening in Cal's backstory that I think could have made a really good story, but they've chose to focus the story on other characters and not really on him. So you're more playing like the soldier in someone else's story kind of thing.
Oh wow, jeez.
That may be a bit much, but you're being used to achieve someone else's goal effectively.
I mean, that might give way over time if
Perhaps there's just no connection there at the end of this, and I don't know the end of this, but say if Cal died, I would just be like, oh, okay,
yeah. I mean, there's but I'm interested to know that the story's good, because, like you said,
the story is good, and just the last thing that I want to go on to, right? Because I feel as if all of that was pretty negative, and I don't want anyone to think that I don't like this game, because in actual fact, I think I fucking love this game, and the reason for that is the combat.
Right.
Oh my lordy, the combat is great. I absolutely fucking love it. You feel incredibly powerful. It just goes to show again and again and again, and there's a reason that people keep on ripping off the Dark Souls combat. It's just fantastic. It's visceral. When you pull it off, like I said, you feel so strong. Like, see, when you're cutting someone in half with it, well, you don't actually cut the people in half. The people are the only things that don't get cut in half. But if you cut someone down with your lightsaber, you push someone over the edge of a building with your force, and then you lunge at them in a big overhead strike. You just feel so great, and there's that great boom of the lightsaber every single time it does it. It's immensely satisfying. It is so good. That is by far the best part of the game. I actually quite like the traversal as well. Again, a lot of people were kind of complaining about that and maybe not enjoying it as much as they thought that they might. I've had no problem with it. Quite enjoying that part of it. Some of the kind of environmental puzzles have been quite good as well. Quite enjoyed that part of it as well. But the combat really is the star of the show by quite a distance, I would say. It's just the kind of Metroid part of it, which I think was one of the big selling points to me for this.
Well, yeah.
I don't really think that's been done that well.
Exactly,
basically.
yeah.
But at the same time, I don't really think it needs it in a lot of ways. If it was just telling this bread and butter story, I think I'd be quite happy, to be honest. It might be a slightly shorter experience, but
I bet you that's why it's been done like this. It feels like, given that it seems to be mostly about finding cosmetics, essentially, it's just padding, right? It's just a way to add things into the game, give it a bit of extra runtime so that people feel like they're getting their money's worth, which is a shame, given that, as you're saying, the story and the combat are actually really good, and maybe they could have relied on that a bit more.
Again, a lot of that was negative. I'm a perfectly I tried to front load the negativity there, right? But what I want you to take away from this is that this is a really good game. Like, it is really great, and a lot of the reason for it is because of that Dark Souls combat. It's like Dark Souls light, you know what I mean? It's nowhere near as difficult as that. Obviously, I'm playing it on what is basically normal mode. I think there's like story, which is obviously easy. Then there's what I'm playing on, which I think is Jedi Knight. Then there's Jedi Master, which is hard. Then there's, I think it's Jedi Grandmaster, which is obviously like very, very hard. And it kind of tells you, it shows you wee bars about like what your parry window is, and like the aggressiveness of the enemies, and how this changes with your difficulty. So I'm basically just playing it on the basic bitch mode, essentially. Like, I think if you really wanted a challenge, because I'm finding it challenging but fine. There's nothing that I've come across that I'm like, Christ, like how am I going to do this? But I think if you bumped it up to the next level, like, you might be getting a more Dark Souls like experience. So if you want that from the game, then that's there for you, like 100%. That's not particularly what I'm after. It is definitely challenging at the level that I'm at. I have died quite frequently. I would go so far as to say a lot of the time was out of stupidity, I'm not going to lie, but it's definitely challenging at that level. But it's just right. And whereas in Dark Souls, anytime you got to a new bonfire or whatever, you were like, oh my god, thank you Jesus, thank you God that I've got to this point. Whereas in Star Wars, I'm more feeling like the next time you get to a meditation point, I'm like, oh, that's good. This is when I wanted it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I
wasn't gasping for it, but it's but it's great, it's really great, and I think it's by far the best Star Wars game that we've had in a long time.
Good stuff. I'm still really excited to play it. Not massively put off by any of your negativity there, so yeah, I'm expecting to play it over Christmas. I think I'm going to fall in love with that story as well. Does feel like we're in a nice period of Star Wars stuff, so so it should be really cool. I'm excited to know how you feel about it next week once you've pushed in a bit further into the game, so the update is in.
I will report back. But now it's time for the news. Alright, and news item number 1. Riot Games, maker of League of Legends, have settled a gender discrimination lawsuit for $10 million. The $10 million will go to pay settlements to any woman who has worked at the company for any period of time in the last 5 years. This all started back in 2018 when Kotaku's Cecilia D'Anastasio done an amazing piece of investigative journalism into sexism at Riot Games. She actually got the Writers Guild of America award for the piece. It was an incredible. We'll put links in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com. It's a long one, but definitely worth reading.
Hugely worth reading. Absolutely.
Hugely worth reading. It was really nasty stuff as well. Really horrible culture there. Lots of bullying and seemingly active sexual discrimination against women. It was really horrible to read. Subsequently, Subsequently, Riot Games have responded to this over the last year. They've overhauled their recruiting process, their hiring process, their promotion process, offering clearer job descriptions, removing problem employees, quotes problem employees, bringing in third-party consultants, employing a diversity director, promoting women to leadership positions. A lot of kind of positive change to kind of counteract this. However, when 2 employees tried to sue Riot separately to this kind of wider lawsuit, Riot was trying to force this into arbitration rather than going to trial. And for those of you who don't know, that forced arbitration in America, I don't really know if we have a system like that here, but in America, it's keeping it in-house and making sure it doesn't go to court.
Yeah.
And I think the arbitrator is also employed by the company, and it is definitely perceived that this goes the way of the company far more than the way of the employee, and it is definitely beneficial for the company to have forced arbitration than it is to the employee. However, the Riot employees at that time responded admirably and staged a walkout against forced arbitration. This was the first of its kind and by far the biggest in the video games industry. However, in August, just past this year, employees told Kotaku again that the company had made real progress to fix a lot of the issues around sexism, fix a lot of the culture. Again, I think it was this kind of like bro culture that was going on, and it just sounded like bullying under the guise of, oh, we're just having a laugh, but in actual fact, you were really
it's still just bullying.
Yeah, exactly, it's still just bullying. However, the progress of these changes has been undercut somewhat as senior male employees are continuing to be employed by Riot, despite the fact that they have in fact been named in the lawsuits and are people who have been identified as exhibiting harmful workplace behaviour, quotes. So, I mean, the 10 million settlement, I think that's a fantastic one, really, for like equality in games. And a lot of this kind of boiled down to the fact that the women at Riot were getting paid, not just like a wee bit less, were getting paid like substantially less for doing the same jobs as men. A lot of them denied promotions and things like that when any of this sort of thing was brought up. In fact, some people, it was speculated, were actually just terminated because they were perceived as being like a problem.
Yeah, troublemakers. Yeah,
exactly. It's really horrible stuff. I really recommend that you go and read that Kotaku article from Cecilia, the original one about sexism in Riot Games. It is a hell of a read. It is long, but it's truly fantastic. I mean, there's this whole internet narrative about video game journalism is dead and all that shit, but when you see pieces like that, you're like, you couldn't be further from the truth. You know, it's a truly remarkable piece of journalism, and it's resulted in this. It's resulted in a £10 million lawsuit. Yeah, that is the power of journalism.
Well, exactly, and of the employees speaking out in the first place and having people in the press that they can trust. And just to further that point, like, the fact that Kotaku are still a year on writing about this, updating people, there are definitely people out here reading this stuff all the time. So it's just, even if you don't play Riot Games, you've got no real interest in this company or whatever, bear in mind that real people are making the games that you love, and some of them are treated terribly while they're doing it. And
absolutely,
you should be aware of that, and you should know what steps you can take to kind of help out with that. Like you said, Mark, the $10 million, I think it's one of the biggest settlements of its kind in Californian history.
Of not just video games, but anything. Yeah,
that is amazing. That is such a win when it could so easily, you can imagine a case like this coming down to he said, she said, and it not really getting anywhere. Yeah. So they've secured a significant amount of money here to go to past and former employees.
And, well, the small piece of credit that Riot is due in this is that they have decided to settle this and pay the money and not take it all the way, not turn it into a he said, she said thing. Like, they've identified problems in themselves they are trying to change. However, their statement, which again we'll link to in PlayersToo.com, around this, I didn't really like very much either, because it was all about, yep, that's that done now. We've changed and we're moving on. We're going to forget all that. But in actual fact, you just need to identify, like, this is a work in progress.
Totally.
You're not there yet, because if your female employees are still coming out and saying that, well, in actual fact, the people who I've got a problem with are still employed by this company and are still my boss.
Exactly,
then do they feel comfortable going to work? Probably not, you know?
Well, the last quote in the Kotaku article from just now, the updated version, finishes on, it's difficult to heal and move on when we are faced with the reality that at the end of the day, Riot prefers to pay the women still here for the trouble of continuing to work with alleged abusers. And I think that kind of sums it up. It's like, they're taking steps, they're doing some of the right things, but there are still people who have been accused of malpractice and of bad behaviour within the workplace, and they are still there, and this is money that is being paid to essentially try and pave over the cracks a bit. So still work to be done. I think you're totally right there, Mark. Like, this is a work in progress, and it's really important that we all keep an eye on how it progresses, basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely a wider, not just specifically on Riot Games, but it's definitely a wider video games industry issue.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are taking a lot of the right steps to not just be a room full of cis white men, effectively, do you know what I mean? And get different perspectives. And I think that ultimately you get better games from that. Like, you get better results from diversity in any field. So video games should be no different. All right, news item number 2, and in the same vein as news item number 1, Quantic Dream have been ordered to pay an employee €7,000. This also due to claims of misbehaving in the workplace, effectively. This all started back in 2018 as well. I actually think that the Riot Games situation and the Quantic Dream situation kind of came out almost in tandem. It was started by a joint investigation by French media outlets, Le Monde, Mediapart, and Canard PC. And then from there, after it was accused of widespread homophobia and misogyny within Quantic Dreams, it got real messy real quick. With current and former employees of Quantic Dream suing the company, and with Quantic Dream themselves suing 2 of those media outlets. David Cage himself said that the claims were slanderous and were part of a smear campaign, which, I mean, I think those statements speak for themselves.
Yeah.
As I said, the accusations were similar to those at Riot Games. It was of widespread sexism, homophobia, and just general inappropriate workplace behaviour. It seemed to be a very, quotes, schoolboy culture within Quantic Dream. And I think that the real thing that seemed to be getting brought up again and again and again was these like photoshopped images of employees, including this employee who is got the €7,000 of just their faces being photoshopped onto porn, effectively, or other lewd images, we will say, and then that just being passed around the office is a big joke. And I always feel about things like that could be funny like, once, if in the right situation, but when that becomes like a thing, and this is by no means an isolated incident, that really crosses that line into, that is just bullying. Do you know what I mean? That is just attacking a person for whatever reason, and that shouldn't be acceptable in any workplace, and you would expect the higher ups in the workplace to respond positively to that and deal with it. Do you know what I mean? Not say it's slander and a smear campaign.
Yeah, we're taking you to court.
Anytime some light is shed on your company, that even if it shows something negative, you would hope that you would respond in a positive manner and fucking do something about it. But unlike Riot Games, Quantic Dream took them to court, all the way to court, and lost. However, it seems that this is where things get a bit murky for me now. This is all in French law, so I'm not even versed in law here.
Come on,
never mind.
Get your French law expertise.
Sorry, man. I'm not that well versed in French law, unfortunately. However, it seems to be that they lost the lawsuit effectively. However, the employee was trying to legally register his resignation as a wrongful dismissal, and his initial claim was actually for €114,000, not €7,000, because in reality this guy probably lives in and around Paris, which is where Quantic Dream are based, and €7,000 if he's been out of work for any length of time is absolutely sweet fuck all.
Yeah, it's nothing at all. It really is.
Absolutely nothing. Paris, of course, being one of the most expensive cities in Europe, if not the world. So his initial ask was for €114,000, probably hoping to get half of that, and he's ended up with 7,000. Despite the fact that the judge said that these photos were lewd and misogynistic and inappropriate, it seems that the only reason why he's getting this money is because of Quantic Dream's breach of, quotes, security obligations that they have towards the employees. It didn't have anything to do with what was in these photos or the fact that they were inappropriate. It was the fact that they spread outside the workplace seemed to be the actual fucking problem, which is bizarre, which is absolutely bizarre, and denied that his resignation was wrongful dismissal. Again, there is some mechanism in French law whereby you can resign and that still be wrongful dismissal. Yeah. I don't, again, not well versed in French law, but there is some mechanism whereby that is a thing that you can achieve through the courts effectively. And then Quantic Dream made a post on Twitter about it, basically describing it as a win for them, which I'm not going to get Lewis to read because, quite frankly, I don't think it deserves a fucking oxygen. I think reading between the lines here, there's a real fucking problem at Quantic Dream. I don't like at all how any of this has been handled properly from the top down, like from David Cage and all the way down. This has just not been handled well at all. Reading between the lines, it seems as if they do have, similarly to Riot Games, this bro culture, this boys will be boys bullshit.
Yeah.
And the fact that that makes your workplace inhospitable to a vast number of people is just a shoulder shrug to them. And unlike Riot Games, they don't seem in any way willing to change that.
Or even admit it or say anything.
Yeah, or even
really,
admit it, even admit that there's any basic fucking problem. To go so far as to attack the press that reported on the issues.
I mean, that's crazy stuff. That they were doing then.
Yeah, it's not good. It really isn't good. Yeah, it really makes you consider those people there, and do you want to give those people your money?
Well, exactly, yeah.
You know?
Until you are certain that they've cleaned up their act and that they're treating their staff properly. I wondered if that security obligation thing was a sort of a mistranslation. You know, here we have this sense of like a duty of care to your employees or whatever.
I understand what you're getting at, but to me it sounds like a data protection.
I know, yeah, but like from what you said there, I think it is. But like, you would want them to understand that even if they think it's all a big joke, but at some point click like, okay, we might find it all funny, but that person doesn't, and that's not fair on them. But it just seems like they haven't really grappled with any of the kind of underlying issues here. They've just sort of thrown a bit of a fit around it, tried to go to court, failed, got away with paying not very much money, and then they're sort of like, oh, great, job done. And it just makes you think the next time they announce something, are we going to meet that with any kind of
I don't
joy?
know,
I mean,
it has to be said, I mean, up front, me and you knew about this, and we both played Detroit Become Human after this fact. And we both thought it was a relatively good game on the whole. So I'm not saying don't go out and don't go and play any Quantic Dreams games. Quantic Dream also made Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain back in the day. But I don't know. Makes me pause for thought.
Yeah, think about it.
Makes me think about it. Doesn't make me want to run out and buy them. I can tell you that.
Exactly that. I mean, the common thing in response to this is that obviously the people who have been bullied here also helped make that game, and they shouldn't be kind of punished for the things that are happening to them doubly. But yeah, it's just be aware that some of these companies are behaving like this and consider where it fits in your kind of moral spectrum. You know.
Just to say as well, like, this is not just about Riot Games. This is not just about Quantic Dream. This is a far and wide problem in the games industry, and I think that we see a lot of companies respond well, if not as well as they could do, like Riot Games per se, who, for all their failings, and God knows there are a lot of them, seem to have responded positively. There are Quantic Dreams out there that don't,
or not,
or refuse to change, refuse to identify that this is problems. This is not how people want to or expect to come to work, you know?
Yeah.
Alright, news item number 3, and a far more happy one, Lewis. Capcom rumours, and particularly Resident Evil 3 Remake rumours, are aplenty, Lewis. They're absolutely all over the place. All over the place. It seems that the artwork has now been leaked as of this very day from a site called GameStat without an E.
GameStat. We're going for GameStat.
Yeah, we're going for GameStat. We're going to assume that it was a misspelling on their part. Who seem to have pulled the images from PSN somehow using their API. If any of you understand APIs, I certainly do not. But subsequently, this has been confirmed by Eurogamer sources that this is in fact the artwork for the game. We'll put it on PlayersToo.com. I'll almost certainly be posting it on social media tonight, if not tomorrow. But it looks cool. Looks cool. Big Nemesis, man. Looks mad.
Yeah, quite well done, the new Nemesis kind of.
Yeah, but all this is just, I mean, it's definitely happening, right? If they're getting artwork together soon. So what are we thinking? Game Awards?
I would be absolutely stunned if there wasn't an official announcement of this at the Game Awards, particularly even if they weren't planning it. This has all been swirling for the last week or so.
They've never really been one to announce at the Game Awards, though, and Capcom are reportedly going to reveal 2 new games at Jumpfest 2020. Jumpfest is effectively a conference for Weekly Shonen Jump, which is one of the biggest manga distributors in the world. Probably sells as much manga as Marvel sells comic books.
Jeez, that's big.
Yeah, no, it's like of that. I'm not saying it's quite that much, but it's of that scale. Yeah. It's a lot. So this is a big festival for that, and apparently Capcom are going to be revealing 2 games. When I was kind of looking into this rumour a wee bit, the thought seemed to be that this is an anime/manga focused conference. It'll be some kind of Japanese kind of anime game. Mm-hmm. However, I've subsequently learned that there will be a Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer there, and that Capcom will be showing Monster Hunter and Mega Man, which, to the best of my knowledge, don't have a hell of a lot to do with manga or anime. So
no, that's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. The point is, think we're going to get it in December. Game Awards are related to this. So yeah, this Jump Festa is December the 21st/22nd. So like over that weekend, I guess. Yeah, excited?
Excited, definitely. Yeah. I think we were saying before, like Resident Evil 3 is a bit of a blind spot, and really excited to play it, particularly in this.
This is effectively a new game for us.
Exactly. in the gorgeous RE engine. I would be surprised if it's not at the Game Awards that we get the actual announcement, but before the end of the year, certainly. The big old question is, and given that there is now seemingly confirmed artwork, when are we seeing the game? How far along is this?
Well, I must admit, it's usually about 6 months for Capcom from when they reveal their games to when the games release. So I believe Resident Evil 2 Remake, for example, was at E3 2018, and that released early this year. So what's that, like 7 months?
7 months. Yeah.
So it can be quite a quick turnaround. So if they are going to reveal it in December, I don't think it's out of the question that we get a summer release on that.
I think it almost feels like it needs to be if it's not going to be cross generation.
It might be cross-gen, but I think that it might be initially released on PS4, Xbox One, and then later on at some stage will be ported to the next gen.
That's exactly what I think will happen. I get the feeling that they want this out to kind of capture that lightning that's out there for Resident Evil 2 Remake. They want to just get it out in the same systems, out with the same players.
Capcom, for a company that was dying on its feet for a long time, have seriously turned it around in recent years. And if they can capture some more of that magic again with an RE3 remake, fair play to them. I'm excited for it, I can tell you that for nothing.
Good stuff, yeah.
All right, and news item number 4. Speaking of next gen, Lewis. Speaking of next gen, the first real pictures, quotes real pictures, the first confirmed pictures, we'll say, of the PS5 dev kits are now out there. It is exactly the design that had previously leaked. With it looks like a weird V shape with lots of fans and ventilation.
More fans than anything else.
It's a weird ass looking thing, so it is. But it seems that some studios could be frustrated at the lack of information around Scarlett's dev kits. This all basically comes from a couple of tweets from Tom Warren over at The Verge. So he basically confirmed that the images were real and that is the PS5 dev kit. And he said this on Twitter.
Yes, this is the PlayStation 5 dev kit. The reason it's large and V-shaped is to make them more easily stackable for devs who are running multiple stress tests. The cooling is optimized to push air out of the sides and center.
Then in response to just like a random comment that was asking about, what about Scarlett dev kits? He then responded with this.
Hardly anyone has them, and they're nowhere near final. That's why you're hearing a lot of nonsense about them not being powerful, etc. Microsoft wants to surprise Sony this time.
Interesting statement, I thought there. But then subsequently, Jason Schreier of Kotaku then responded with this.
Not sure if the trying to surprise Sony part is quite right. Common sense would suggest that, like with the Xbox One, Microsoft is just running behind schedule and will launch pretty hot. But I've talked to a few third-party developers who said they were frustrated by the lack of info on Scarlett, especially compared to Prospero.
So that's basically where I'm getting the frustration from, that maybe some of the bigger third parties are like, well, where the hell is this? I mean, images of the PS5 dev kit have been kicking about for a while now.
Exactly, yeah.
I would say. What do you think? Are Microsoft trying to surprise Sony?
I find it a little hard to believe that a business the size of theirs would behave in that way. I get the feeling that
it's a total fucking nonsense.
They're just working on their own thing. Like Jason Schreier suggests, like they're probably just not quite on schedule. I could imagine, given how much they were battered at their reveal of each console at the start of this generation, to a lot of people they effectively lost in that one press conference where Sony just made all of their key features look sort of daft in comparison. It seems like they might not want to have some of that leak in advance, but that does not mean that developers wouldn't get their hands on the kits, surely, just with like really stringent NDAs attached to it all.
I mean, you would have thought so. Yeah, I think this whole thing of trying to surprise Sony is... I don't really know why he said that. That's just a kind of dumb statement, to be honest. I don't think they're trying to surprise anyone. I wonder if it's maybe behind schedule, because maybe that console to Xbox, maybe that's not their priority anymore. Maybe xCloud is actually their priority, and maybe that's where a lot of their resources go. And do you know what? If Scarlett falls a little bit behind, okay. I don't think that's a good idea, personally.
No.
But I think that they are more interested in selling us xCloud than they are selling us that console, because they'll be selling us at a loss, because all consoles are sold at a loss. So I think that they are vastly more interested in selling us xCloud, which they will definitely be profiting off of, than selling us the next box.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is necessarily going to come about this generation, but I think that is where that is the future of Xbox. That's where they're looking towards. Whereas I'm not sure if Sony are. I think Sony are very, very concentrated on selling as an Xbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, but I think that's because the evidence still shows that people want the next box. You know, that's what they're interested in.
To be clear, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good idea.
No, I know you're not. Like,
I just think that I'm just speculating.
I guess the idea behind this, like, trying to surprise Sony thing is this idea that Sony will announce the PS5 and give you all the specs and all the costings, blah blah blah, and then at some point a couple of weeks later, Microsoft will do theirs. So even if the console comes out later, they do their announcement later and they go, well, actually, you've got this type of CPU, we've got one better, and ours is $100 cheaper. And that's the idea behind surprising them. But I just don't really accept it in that industry. People aren't vaguely aware of the moves that their competitors are taking.
Definitely.
And so you just get down to this situation where, maybe Xbox are banking on xCloud. I don't think that the demand is massively there for it, and they cannot afford not to come out swinging in this generation, even if the idea is that down the line the console won't matter as much. It still does right now, and if PS5 sells, countless millions more than Xbox Scarlett does, and people start getting into that ecosystem, and they've got a couple of great launch exclusives, it's game over already. Like for this point,
Lewis, I definitely don't disagree with you. Another thing that I was slightly wondering, and again, this is pure speculation. So the PS5 have basically come out with some of their hardware. We know what's going to be in it. Vaguely. I think that was one of the Wired articles that they done. There was then rumours immediately off the back of that it was going to be more powerful than the Xbox Scarlett, which those tweets allude to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that information's come out and then they've went, oh shit.
Back to the drawing board.
Then they went back to the drawing board. I would like to think not.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Makes sense.
Stranger things have happened in video gaming, yeah.
Basically, Xbox have always been the more powerful console. That was their thing. And that's fine. It doesn't necessarily mean that there are better games. I mean, Nintendo's easily the least powerful console and it's selling like hotcakes. You know what I mean? So it's all about the games you can play on it, man. All right, finishing off with a couple of shout outs. First off, a bit of a PSA here. Square Enix will start charging for the Final Fantasy VII Remake First Class Edition pre-orders starting the first week of December. Now, Lewis, I don't know if you've noticed, but this is the first week of December.
It certainly is, yeah.
And they only announced this last week, I believe. So this is short notice. Again, for those of you who have never pre-ordered anything, I've only pre-ordered one thing in my life. But the money's not usually taken until like a couple of weeks before, So for a game that's out in March, taking the money for the pre-orders now is a bit of a weird move, to say the least. Particularly if you're giving people a week's notice about that, particularly on the run up to Christmas.
Yeah, and particularly when the thing costs $329.
$329 this costs as well on the run up to Christmas. A payment that might be coming off of people's cards automatically that they might not be expecting on the run up to Christmas. This is bullshit. So
very dodgy.
Yeah, if you are one of these people, or if you know any of these people, Jesus Christ, make sure your finances are in place if it's going to come out of your card automatically, or cancel your pre-order. Square Enix did say if you've not got the money in your account, then they won't take it off you. It will just be declined or whatever, but then they will try again in quotes the coming months. Again, no specific dates. So yeah, I do not like that at all. I think that is very bad for the consumers, even if they waited until February and done this, so there was like a month before, but 3 months before. What is that all about? I mean, yeah, it's crazy. And the time of year. It's bad for the consumers and insensitive towards the consumers. Do I think this is a malicious move intentionally? Not really. I think they're probably just trying to get their numbers in order. But it's still fucking dumb, quite frankly. Alright, shout out number 2. YouTube, as of yesterday, Lewis, has decided that video game violence is not the same as real world violence.
Hey.
It's nearly 2020 and they decided that was a thing yesterday. So, for those of you that don't know, and as I didn't really know this up until recently because I've had no reason to know about posting things on YouTube up until we started this podcast, but video game violence was essentially censored in the same way as real world violence, which is obviously ludicrous. When movies and, I can't remember what they were calling it, like simulated violence was a different category altogether from video games, which is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me that existed up until 2 days ago. But nonetheless, this is the world that we live in. This is good news, which makes a change from most of the things coming out of Google and YouTube. Yeah, so this will be positive for content creators, anyone that's working in the video game space. Should be leading to less videos being demonetized or removed. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that Google has just launched Stadia that is about to be heavily integrated with YouTube.
Yeah. a sound analysis there, I suspect, Mark.
Alright, shout out number 3. Super Mario Maker 2 DLC has been confirmed for the 5th of December. So when this podcast comes out, you'll be able to download for free. The DLC will include dash blocks, P blocks, frozen coin blocks, and classic enemies Spike and Poke. There will also be a new mode called Ninja Speedrun, where you get to speedrun Nintendo-made courses, and other players who have speedrunned the course or speedrunning the course at the same time as you will appear as wee ninja ghosts as you go through, which actually looks quite cool.
Very nice.
It looks like did you ever play Super Meat Boy?
Yeah.
Alright, when you complete like a level in Super Meat Boy, it shows you like all your failed attempts. It kind of looks like that. But the most important thing about this one is that you get to play as Link. Link is a playable character, complete with sword, shield, bow and arrow.
And bombs, he's got sweet bombs.
Oh, he's got bombs as well, of course. Which actually fundamentally changes the way you play a lot of these levels, which I thought was really interesting. It was a really interesting move from Nintendo. I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't know why there's not more Mario and Zelda crossovers, by far their biggest properties, I'm sure. But yeah, it looked cool. And I'm sure if you're into a Super Mario Maker 2, I'm sure there'll be great additions for you.
Totally, yeah.
Any interest in going back and playing
it? Not massively. I think this should have happened pretty much every month since that game got released.
Yeah, I must admit, this DLC has been too slow to come out, and I think Nintendo have already come out and said that the sales of Super Mario Maker 2 have been a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah. And they just needed to support it better. I'm sure some people will dive back in. They'll make some really great stuff with this, but yeah, a little too little too late.
Alright, shout out number 4. It's the start of December, Lewis, and with the start of the month comes free games. On PS4 this month, we have Titanfall 2 and Monster Energy Supercross. One of those games was highly critically revered, and one of those games is sponsored by Monster. On the Xbox One, on your Xbox Games with Gold, you have Insane Robots and Jurassic World Evolution.
Slim pickings this month.
I mean, Titanfall 2.
Titanfall 2 is amazing.
For all you guys playing on your Xboxes, okay, you've got slim pickings. I've got Titanfall 2 over here. I'm quite happy.
That's the thing. I mean, Titanfall 2 is a great get. Very weird that after the Death Stranding Monster Energy Drink furore, so to speak, that they've released a second game already.
Alright, and shout out number 5, just a wee nod. This very day, Lewis, the 3rd of December, the 25th anniversary of PlayStation and the PlayStation 1. What a thing, eh? Glad they exist. Indeed. We wouldn't be talking to everyone right now if it wasn't for the PS1.
Yeah, very unlikely, or things would look a lot different, certainly, yeah. And what a 25 years of gaming moments and memories it's been.
I mean, there was that blip with the PS3, but other than that, it's been pretty solid.
Still some great games on that machine, but yeah, a bit of a hulking beast. But
let's have a clap out before we go to topic of the week. Topic of the week, a beer and a clap out. Let's just have a wee. There we go. That's what I love. And we are back with topic of the week. Topic of the week this week is our play along of Limbo, Lewis. I've been quite looking forward to this one, I'm going to say. It was really great for me to go back and play it. I hadn't played it in absolutely ages, and I totally forgot how often you die in that game. So just a wee bit of background on Limbo. It was initially released back in 2010 on the Xbox Live Arcade on the Xbox 360. From there, it has subsequently been ported to absolutely everything under the sun, including Android and iOS and just everything. And it was developed by Playdead. And in particular, two people to mention are Arndt Jensen and Dino Pate, both of whom were instrumental in making the game and co-founded that studio. Yellow, so Limbo indeed. Yeah, so I'm kind of the same, where I first played it years and years ago, possibly on PS3 just before the turn of that generation, and yeah, I had kind of forgotten quite a lot of it myself. I forgot how strangely violent it can be in places. It is insanely violent.
Yeah, forgot how tricky some of the puzzles can be. It's not. I don't think it's a very difficult game, and obviously replaying it recently, certain moments it triggers a memory, or you kind of vaguely remember what to do. So I don't want to say for certain that it's like an easy puzzle platformer, but there's definitely moments in it that are like
there's challenge there,
absolutely challenge, and it always gets the balance right. I thought between it's never like that Celeste thing that you were talking about, particularly with the new DLC, where your platforming has to be so precise that it's kind of mind numbing after a while. It gives you some leeway.
It's much more about the puzzles, a lot less about the platform.
Exactly. It's like working out. Generally speaking, what will happen is you've worked out what you're supposed to do, and it maybe takes you 2 or 3 goes to get it right on any of the kind of more difficult puzzles.
Yeah, I would say that kind of flips early on. I would say that like early on, it's much more about much more about the puzzles and less about the platforming, but it actually does get a wee bit more challenging, much more as you kind of go on in the game.
Definitely more about platforming towards the end, and maybe we'll come back to that. But first of all, like the thing to say about this game, the obvious thing, the thing that anyone who's played it will be thinking about is the style and the sound. It is just an absolutely gorgeous game. So if you haven't played it, it's all 2D, it's all in kind of black and white. So it plays a lot with light and shadow and
all grayscale.
Exactly. And your character is sort of unnamed, and you kind of meet him as the player, and you're not entirely sure what's going on in this world, where you have to go, how it's all going to unfold. There's almost I think there's no in-game tutorials. There's no kind of prompts at any point as
absolutely
to
nothing. And
what you're supposed to do.
That was one of the design decisions by Playdead, was not to have a tutorial. The first goal that apparently was that they were supposed to create like a specific atmosphere, which is obviously this incredibly eerie atmosphere that comes from many facets of the game that we'll get into. And the second goal was that they were to have no other controls apart from an action button to grab stuff basically and jump.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, so it's super simple and straightforward in that sense. But as you alluded to there, like all of these things combined, your kind of general cluelessness, so to speak, as at the beginning of the game, the simplicity of the mechanics, but all the intricate ways they can be used together, like it all adds to that atmosphere of just being kind of uneasy in this world. And particularly that's like added to by the way it looks and the way it sounds. There's something so amazing about when a bear trap, say, closes and
so a bear trap is one of the
first things
that you're going to die from, effectively.
Yeah,
like you said, I think that the sound as well, the fact that it is game is incredibly minimal from both art style and sound design. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, you're only hearing your own footsteps or hearing other shit that's going to kill you. Effectively, that's all you hear in the game. There isn't a lot of other music going on, which is often used to create moods and create a specific feeling as you're going through a game. So the absence of that in itself says a lot, I think. Mm-hmm. And it does create this feeling of like there's a constant feeling of tension, of suspense and of dread. And again, I think that it does play with a lot of like fairly dark themes, to be honest with you, like centered around like loneliness. Like initially in the game you do come across other characters and you come across the gigantic spider, which is the most famous thing from this game probably. But later on in the game, in actual fact, you don't see anyone for most of the time. The only thing that's moving is, well, by that point you're in a factory, so there's like gears and things that move, and then the only other thing there that's alive is you, and you're just this solitary figure among these enormous gears, and it becomes very solitary very quickly. And even then, when you are in big sections where you have to platform between, like I said, these gear things, but then you suddenly come to other sections of the game where again it just goes back to like very deathly quiet, and I love that. Along with the visuals that we were talking about is just the use of black, like so much black. Although we're saying in grayscale, a lot of it is black. Like there are huge portions of your screen at any one time that are just black. Your character is black. If you were standing in front of another black surface, the only thing that you'd be able to see is his eyes. Yeah, and it all just goes to create this atmosphere of, well, what I think is like quite lonely. But also dread and tension, like particularly early on when you do see the spider and you do see other humans. It's a real fear. Like we were talking about scary games in October, which I can't remember if we mentioned this or not, but this was one of the most eerie, uncomfortable games I've ever played in moments. And it wasn't jump scares that just were like, oh, a cheap scare. I felt that thinking back to this game, you feel the fear, you know what I mean? Like I'm not sure this is the first time, but one of the times where you are getting chased by the spider, you chop its legs off with one of the bear traps that we were just talking about.
That is the first time you encounter it,
Is it? Yeah. And then you know that it's going to chase you. And the suspense of that, like I can still feel it in my stomach. Totally, do you know what I mean? It's horrifying.
I mean, that's the great thing that it does, like just focusing in on those spider sections for a minute, because that, I think, to be honest, the first half of the game is far better than the second half.
Oh, categorically. I mean that's definitely true. The second half of the game is got some absolutely fantastic puzzles in it and whatever, and the ending is spectacular. Yeah. But the front half of the game is utterly majestic.
Yeah, it's totally. So it sticks much more closely to a sort of interesting like fairy tale world. There's something dreamlike and horrible about nightmarish about it, which I think, well,
it's like Limbo.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, and so you very quickly encounter this giant spider, and like Mark, you were saying there, you know categorically that it's going to come after you at some points, but it doesn't for a little while. And then there's just one sequence when you're walking up a hill where the camera slowly pulls out and you start to see its legs appear on the left hand side of the screen, and that is just utterly terrifying. Like, that is such a visceral, fear-inducing reaction that it gives players, because I mean, so many people are afraid of spiders, even if you're not. Like, it's unpleasant to be chased by a spider.
Arndt Jensen, all that was brought around by his apparently quite intense arachnophobia.
Not surprised at all. And so moments like that are just done so well. But I do think it loses something as the game progresses when it does transition into this slightly more industrial, or like almost like just real world. Like, there's a big hotel sign at one point, and
so that was still in the first half, I would say, but that's beginning to transition, and you end up in the factory section, like I said, with all the gears, and that eventually leads up to the end of the game. Again, it's not a long game. What is it, like 3 hours?
3 hours easily. You can complete this very quickly, and that is the thing to say. Like, as much as we're saying one half is better than the other, I mean, it's all kind of a piece. You'll play through most of it in one sitting probably. So there's just a lot to unpick within it, that the fact that it can change so drastically from start to finish in such a short game is interesting. It still holds together really nicely. Like, the puzzles aren't drastically different, but
absolutely. Before we get on to talking about the ending, which I definitely want to come to in a second, I just want to talk about like the way that the game does death, which is very well done. The game will immediately kill you in bullshit ways. You will just wander into a bear trap, and you won't be able to see it for grass or whatever, and it will just kill you and you'll be dead. Yep. And in most games, I would think, that's bullshit. You've just killed me. That was just a really cheap death you've inflicted on me. But what that done was teach you, there's bear traps here. They're hidden. Watch yourself. Which, you could say that about a lot of things if it's cheap deaths, but then it continues to do this. So one of the things that I remember early on, there was a branch that has something hanging from it, effectively. And you have to jump onto it to jump onto the next platform, but you can't quite make it. So when you try to jump from that tree branch onto the next platform, you don't make it. And what do you land in? A bear trap that you couldn't see, and it kills you like that. And again, you're thinking, that's really bullshit death, but no, because the solution to that incredibly small puzzle, this one screen puzzle, is actually you have to pull that bear trap over so that the thing hanging from the tree, when you jump onto it, gets caught in the bear trap. That then lightens the branch, and then you can then make the jump. So it uses death as a teaching mechanism in a very direct way. It's not just like Celeste, for example. Like, I mean, you'll die loads of times playing Celeste, of course, and you will learn from that. But it's not quite as direct. It's not like, I've done that one time, and now I know that the bear trap's there, and I know that probably has to come down, and I can't make this jump. So what do I need to change to make this jump? I can pull that into the bear trap, and then I can make the jump. It's not like that, and it's the puzzle elements of it. It's using death as a puzzle solving mechanism. Is very, very interesting, and is done incredibly well throughout the entire game. However, the ending, and everyone talks about the ending because like a lot of these games that we talk about on here, or certainly a few that we've talked about, Braid in particular springs to mind.
Braid,
and when we were talking about Braid, a couple of months ago now, wasn't it? That Braid paved the way for a lot of games. I think that this game probably doesn't exist without Braid, to be completely honest with you. Yep. However, that's a slight side note. But the ending is incredibly, as is the whole game, but the ending is very abstract. And it basically finishes with you smashing through a pane of glass in quite a spectacular manner due to the puzzle. And then you walking up a small hill up behind a girl who you can only presume is your sister that you are going to find, which is the whole point in this game. The tagline for the game is uncertain of his sister's fate, a boy enters Limbo. And that is literally all you're told about the game, is that one sentence. The boy walks up behind the figure of his sister, who then kind of sits up knowing that someone's behind him, and then just cuts to credits, and that's it. So a lot of speculation has been had about the end of the game. Do you have any particularly profound thoughts on it?
I don't think anything particularly profound. It seems like if the idea of the game is that all the way through you've been journeying through some version of Limbo or of hell or whatever, and then you finally kind of crack this last puzzle and you break through into what looks very much like the start of the game and turn it sort of basically is the start of the game all over again, and then you find her there. I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to read in that you have located her within Limbo, that she is safe, or that maybe this was never actually a possible goal because you never actually touch her. You don't actually find out what has happened to her, what her role in any of this is. You just sort of stand there and then start the game again and stand up from the same position and begin all over again. You know?
Basically. I mean, the one thing I will say is that after the credits, the final screen, the girl is like beneath a ladder, which looks a bit like a treehouse. And in the final screen, that ladder is like shorter and what you can only presume is broken, and where the girl was, where the sister was, there's like a mound of grass, and where the boy was like a mound of grass, and then there's a big light shining in. So again, there's a lot of like symbolism here, and again, there's a lot of speculation around the ending, and there's some great theories out there actually.
Yeah.
Like there was a whole theory about how it was a silent retelling of Dante's Inferno, which was genuinely, it was fucking fascinating. It really was. It was really, really interesting. I'm not sure if that was real in any capacity, like when the game was being designed, but that's the sort of thing that you can project onto it. You know what I mean? Those are the kind of feelings that you can project onto the game. I really don't think that it matters.
No.
I mean, to me, as with all good art, really, it's more about portraying a feeling, trying to make the player feel certain things throughout the game. Because that's what art in any medium is. It makes you feel to what the artist intends, effectively, you know. And I think that what the game done through its visuals, through its constantly killing the boy, again due to that amazing sound design, during the loneliness, during the times where he was being guided by the butterflies and things like that in the game, even up until the point where he was trying to walk towards his sister, and we don't ever see if he actually makes it. It's just, it portrays to me, like as I said, it's a sense of dread. It plays with a lot of themes like death, and it's unashamedly about that. And also there's a lot of theories around suicide and the car crash and the girl dying in very tragic circumstances, and whether or not that was the boy's fault. And it makes you think about all these things, and that really is what good art does. It makes you think in certain ways. It makes you think deeper. It makes you go beyond what is just there at its surface. I really think that, along with certain other games that we've talked about, if video games are art, then surely these are the things that are proving it time and time again. Games like that, games that make you go beyond what is just there at the surface, what you are just playing through. I mean, there's so much more happening there to the player than what you're seeing on the screen. You know?
Definitely, yeah. And it's all that those feelings are created in the player because of what you're seeing on screen as well, though. Of course, like it is very much like a visual art game. You know, it works. It wouldn't work if it was just very beautifully rendered 3D, fully coloured graphics.
Well, it wouldn't work the same.
It wouldn't work the same.
Do the same thing. So the point is that these are all deliberate choices to make you feel in a certain way.
Yeah.
And the abstractness of the story is a part of that, is to make you continue to think, and to think about all the different parts of the game and what did it really all mean. Does it even matter? Does it matter? I mean, to me, not really, to be honest. But, well, it's fun to speculate, isn't it?
Well, people always look for meaning in any kind of art as well. Of course. And I think, like, there's definitely things there, and obviously the developers themselves have sort of said they had certain ideas, but I definitely think it is just about that experience of playing it, of feeling how you feel in different parts of the game, getting that ending, which is quite abrupt in its way. Like, it sort of happens before you realise that it is coming.
I didn't realise the game was ending until it ended.
It was
extremely abrupt.
Even replaying it for me, like, I got to that last bit and I was like, oh, is this it? And then that was it. In video game in general, you expect a huge crescendo and then you get your finale moment, and it doesn't really work like that. It's subtle and it's underplayed, and that just speaks so nicely to everything else the game is doing. That end could have come at so many other points in the game. You know, you could have just finished the screen and been presented with her, and so you do get the sense that he's on this journey, but maybe this journey can't really stop, you know, and it's only ended there. I'm interested by what that glass shattering represents, right enough, so there's maybe something that ties it all together there. But yeah, here we are. Like, we could speculate for ages, exactly. You know.
We could speculate for ages. But I have to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars, again, it really does do a huge amount for the exposure of the show. It really, like, genuinely does mean a lot to us. And if you can leave us a review, say hi. But seriously, I mean, if anyone could give us a 5-star review, it really, really does mean a lot. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that. I suppose we have to tell everyone what our next game is.
Yeah, our next PlayAlong game.
Our next PlayAlong game for December will be Inside, which is also by Playdead Studios and draws a lot of parallels to Limbo. Also, I was fairly conscious that maybe some people had bought this on the double pack thing that Playdead sell, which is the double pack of Limbo and Inside.
Yeah, definitely.
They are very similar games in a lot of ways and very different in other ways, but there definitely can be a lot of parallels drawn between the two of them, and I think it would be pretty good to talk about them back to back as well.
Definitely,
I'm quite excited to do that.
Yep, and I've never played the game in full. I do know how it ends, frustratingly. I saw a friend finish it and couldn't really get out of that, but I'm really, really excited to see how the rest of the game plays out, see how similar it is to Limbo.
It is really, really good.
Yeah.
A lot of people would, if you enjoyed playing Limbo, or you played along with Limbo, or you just enjoyed hearing us talk about Limbo and how good Limbo is, a lot of people would consider Inside better than Limbo.
Yeah.
We'll get to whether or not I think that, but it'll be exciting to talk about at start of January, I guess.
January,
in the new year,
yeah. So play along with us through December, and then let us know what you think, and we'll talk about it at the start of January. Perfect.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, see you later.
Thanks.